Celtics Life Live. We're having technical issues. There's a chance no other human beings in the world end up seeing this, but we're gonna do it for love of the game. And if it posts, great. And if it doesn't, oh my God, Paul just showed up, man. Paul, we are going right now. I literally started 30 seconds ago. This is awesome. All right, so joined by Mark Van Heusen, Eric Blysdale, Paul Callahan. Take two, like I said, we're having technical difficulties. Hopefully this ends up working out. But we're going to get back into it. We're going to start from the top. We are talking about the first 18 games of this season. We're going to give you guys a grade. Let's start with you, Mark. 18 games in. How would you assess the first 18 games and how would you grade it? And while you guys answer, I'm going to try to launch this thing on the website and, like, fingers crossed this thing works.
All right. I think through 18 games, B+. I'd rather not evaluate just these 18 games. I kind of want to go back to after the trade deadline last year. Since February 2nd, I believe, they started playing well on the February 3rd game. They're on a 52-win pace now for 2/3 of a season if you look at the beginning of this season and the end of last season. That's pretty good. I mean, they finished 24-12 last year, so put that with the 10-8 this year, they're falling back a little bit. But I think that's just because they're trying to integrate all the new guys. In particular, Amir Johnson and David Lee, they're not quite sure what to do with them yet. They're still finding out their rotations. I think they'll definitely improve as the season goes on. They've had some good games and some bad games. They're pretty inconsistent. But they're definitely going to get better, and they're on pace right now for like low 40s wins. I think it might get up to high 40s, and that's right about what we expected, I think. So, yeah, B+, I'd say. Paul?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I'd give them a B. I think that with so many new bodies joining the team, being 10-8, a couple games over 500 is right where this team should be. I think you look at every month of the season, if we can go 10-8 and have one great month, that gets us pretty close to 50 wins, and I think that's as good as of a season as any of us could have realistically hoped for this year.
What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little less. I'm gonna go with a solid B-. It's hard to complain about a 10-8 record, 18 games in, considering how the team has looked the past couple of years record-wise. And they've got some nice wins. They've beaten Houston. They've beaten the Wizards twice. They've beaten Atlanta. They've got some nice notches on the belt. But they've also got some really disgusting losses, like that loss to Brooklyn, that they almost lost to the Sixers. The Orlando loss, I thought that the Celtics were a much better team. They looked horrible against them. And then they'll come back against Miami, a team that's actually contending this year, and just knock them out of the park. And the Celtics were flirting with double-digit lead the whole game. So, I mean, it's good so far. I'd give it a B-, but there are times when they just look lost out there. So it's not a whole. Not going to go to the B+ just yet.
All right, let me just start off by saying we are live. It worked. I'm excited about it. I'm pumped up.
Nice.
Mark, you can send it out on Twitter. Technical difficulties. Right. We're 36 minutes late, so you can suck it, Google Hangout. My grade is a B. A lot of what you guys said, I'll echo. Some real duds in there. One thing I expect out of this team with Brad Stevens, with the depth they have, with the character I think they have, I expect consistent effort. Losing close to good teams doesn't bother me that much because we still know the upper echelon talent isn't here. Getting blown out by Orlando and Brooklyn, that does bother me. So there's a few games that have happened that bumped me down from what should have been a B+ or an A-. Probably was a B+ or an A- up and through before the Brooklyn loss. But a few bad games since then. Still like the start, still like the team, still like the direction. But a B just because there was the Orlando game and the Brooklyn game really left a sour taste in my mouth. Those aren't games I expect. And you can also throw in the last quarter and a half versus Atlanta. And I know Atlanta's a good team, but to just get run out of the building like that, again, it happens, but I don't like how it happened really 3 times in a span of 10 days. That's a little bit troubling. Let's go through. Who's been the most impressive player so far this season to you? Let's start with Eric this time.
Avery Bradley's been nice. He's really showed some things, but I'm going to go with Sullinger. I kind of written the dude off before this season started. I was sick of the whole, is he going to get down weight? Is he going to come in shape? Is he going to be able to play and not get winded? But when the guy comes in, he is putting up amazing numbers in not that much time. He's only averaging 25 minutes per game, and he's still almost averaging a double-double with 11 points and 9 rebounds. His per 36 is 15 points and 13 rebounds per game. That's insane.
It is.
And he just comes off the bench, and he's like a spark plug. He's doing the hustle plays. He's getting the big rebounds. I mean, people want to talk about his weight. He's using the weight still. He's throwing that backside into the paint and grabbing those rebounds. And so, and he's shooting the ball from 34% from 3, which I'm going to take all day. I know a lot of people want him to stick in the paint, but if he can stretch the floor shooting it like that, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll go next. It looks like we lost Mark. Hopefully he jumps back on. So technical difficulties aren't quite gone yet, it seems, but we're figuring it out. Mine is Avery Bradley. What he's done lately is the best Avery Bradley we've ever seen, better than what we saw in the 2012 playoffs, better than we saw at any point over the last few years. He looks like the guy that when Danny Ainge signed this extension, and a lot of people thought it was an overpayment, including myself, the minority of people who said he'd end up being underpaid right now are being proven correct, because this guy, 16 points a game, shooting 44% from 3, to be doing what he's doing with the defense we know he brings to the table is extremely impressive. Sullinger would be number 2 on my list. Isaiah Thomas would probably be 3rd. But right now, to me, Avery Bradley's the MVP. Paul, MVP, most impressive player so far. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there. I think Avery Bradley's been the most impressive so far. The whole knock on this team was that they didn't have too many go-to scorers, and shooting was going to be an issue. And then you got Avery Bradley coming in shooting 42% from 3. That's exactly what this team needs. I think we expected it from Isaiah Thomas, and I don't think we knew what to expect from Avery Bradley. And I think we've gotten more than anyone could have reasonably expected this year out of him.
Yeah, totally. So I think as Mark looks like he's rejoining, believe his vote was also for Avery Bradley. Let's talk a little bit though about the other subplot to this season, which would be the draft picks. Draft pick watch 2016. The Nets have actually looked less pathetic lately, which is disappointing. They are now up to 5 wins. Is that right? 5 wins?
Yeah.
5 wins. They are the 4th worst team in the NBA as we speak. Philadelphia and Philly look like Philadelphia and LA look like they're going to be the 2 worst teams in the league, barring something unforeseen. And right now, New Orleans is just ahead of Brooklyn. That, I think, could still flip-flop, especially with 60 games remaining. But Brooklyn, the Celtics obviously own their unprotected first-round pick. What would it take for you to trade that pick? Obviously, everyone has all their eyes on Ben Simmons, but it's not a lock that the Celtics even finish in the top 5. Brooklyn finishes with a bottom 5 record, and they even get a chance at Simmons. So what would it take for you to trade that pick? Is there anything you would trade that pick for that's even semi-realistic? Let's go back to you, Paul. What would it take for you to send that pick elsewhere?
I think it would have to be an impact player. I mean, I think Boogie Cousins is the name that's been thrown around the most in sort of a fantasy trade scenario. I know Bill Simmons had a tweet last night saying, trade the Nets pick and another first, Dealey's salary for Boogie, and I think the Celtics should do that trade in a heartbeat. I mean, Ben Simmons is great. He's who we want, but if you're talking about a 25% chance or a 15% chance of getting that top pick and a 100% chance of trading it for Boogie Cousins, I think you do that trade in a heartbeat.
Eric?
Well, I'd take a lot less for it than I would have a couple weeks ago, based on what the Nets are doing. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I would have said I don't want to trade it for anything. You have a real shot at a Ben Simmons, a guy or any of the other top 5 guys in this year's draft who all look like studs that you can throw into this young core, build with Smart, build with Bradley and Crowder and everybody else, and just keep the ball rolling. But now that Brooklyn's starting to win games, that pick is losing value every single win. So, I mean, I don't personally. I've gone on and written a huge article about why I don't want DeMarcus Cousins, but that's who I would trade it for, like that kind of caliber player. Not necessarily him per se, but like a Paul George if he ever became available. But now Indiana's going nuts. A guy that you can he's either going to be the first or second guy on a contender that's going to help carry the team. Besides that, I don't want to get it for a rental. I don't want to anybody who has an expiring contract. I don't want to trade it away for anything less than a guy who's going to be a real foundational piece. And I don't really know if there's anything like that around, or if there's going to be this season.
Mark, you are currently back, so I'm going to go.
I am.
There's been 0 marks. There's been 2 marks down the time. Right now, there's 1
Wow.
mark. So, Mark, we're talking about what would you trade the Nets pick for, if anything. Let's get your opinion on that, just in case you drop off again.
One thing that I think is really funny is the Nets have been playing better lately. In fact, Simmons had a tweet the other day. He was like, all right, I'm giving up on getting Ben Simmons because the Nets are better than I thought. It doesn't matter if the Nets are the worst team in the NBA. It doesn't matter if they're the second worst, third worst, fourth worst, like bottom 7. Obviously, worse is better, but it's not that big a deal. And the reason is I went back and I just did a real brief, quick bit of lottery research. So last year, the Timberwolves were the worst team, got the #1 pick. They're the first team in 10 years that was the worst team that got the #1 pick. The last 10 before, Cavs, 9th worst, Cavs, 3rd worst, Hornets, 3rd, Clippers, 8th, Wizards, 5th, Clippers, 2nd, Bulls, 9th, Trailblazers, 6th, Raptors, 5th, Bucks, 6th.
Yeah.
Anything in the top 3, 4, 5, no big deal. I guess the point I'm making is we should still value this pick as if it is the #1 pick. And obviously, I missed what you guys said before. If a superstar comes along and you can get the superstar, that's great. But we shouldn't panic on Brooklyn at all. This is still going to be a huge lottery pick. And unless an amazing offer comes along right now, which it's unlikely it's going to, it's way better to wait and see how this plays out.
Yeah, Mark, you basically echo what I would say as well. Listen, this is still a really valuable pick. Don't let 5 wins in Brooklyn's first 19 games fool you. Number 1, Brook Lopez hasn't gotten hurt yet. He's probably going to get hurt. And when he does, they are going to really fall off, even from what they've been. They also could, it's not a lock, they could look to trade Jarrett Jack, who's in a contract season, and maybe someone gives up a late first-round pick. A contender might view Jarrett Jack, who's still a very solid player, as someone they'll give up something for. So you got to hope they make some kind of deal that gives them an asset, even though it's going to make them worse, and they know that that won't help their draft pick. Maybe someone does make a deal for a Jack. Maybe Brook Lopez goes down. They aren't a very deep team. Their bench is horrific. So they're still in a position, I think. I would be surprised if they finish with a bottom 2 record, but I would have been surprised if they finished with the worst record the whole year. I thought the Lakers were going to be terrible. They're actually worse than I thought. Kobe is giving the Lakers the gift of a lifetime by pulling off the single worst season of all time in a year where they need it. He is the LVP, which is going to make him their MVP because he's going to keep them that top 3 pick. You watch. Kobe's going to land them a top 3 player by pulling off the worst shooting season since 1949. No player since Joe Fulks in 1949 has shot at least 17 shots a game at 30% or worse. That is what Kobe is doing, and it is a performance for the ages for that team to keep their to get a top 3 pick, which would prevent them from sending their top 3 protected pick to Philly. All that said, I still think the Brooklyn pick is massively valuable. If DeMarcus Cousins is available, you trade the pick. Now, if you get the #1 pick and you have Ben Simmons on the Celtics, then I don't think you make the trade. But if right now, when it's, say, like a 10 to 20% chance of landing Ben Simmons, you absolutely make the trade for a 25-year-old dude who's averaging 26 or 28 and 14. Cousins is an absolute monster. You get him in a good culture, which he's never been in his career, and he's going to adapt. I am so pro DeMarcus Cousins. I don't want to play the role of Matt Richardson because I know he's not here, but I am so in the pro Cousins camp. If you can, and I don't think, by the way, Sacramento would do this because I think they're going to wait to see if you actually get the #1 pick before giving up Cousins, considering they still have him for 3 seasons. But if DeMarcus Cousins comes available, you trade that pick, you trade another first-round pick, and you trade the salary necessary, and you make it happen. But it needs to be a great player if you're going to trade that Brooklyn pick. You don't trade it for more depth. All right, let's kind of go into that's the trade stuff. Well, I had this point. Depth. The Celtics are loaded in depth. But one thing I am a little bit worried about is the depth and the veterans taking away from any ability for the young players to develop. Now I have this. David Lee, who obviously is 32, 33 years old, does not have a long-term future with the Celtics, and is really only about the 8th or 9th man. But David Lee has played more minutes than the following 4 players combined. Terry Rozier, this year's 16th overall pick. R.J. Hunter, this year's 28th overall pick. Jordan Mickey, this year's 32nd overall pick, I believe. And James Young, last year's 19th overall pick. 4 basically first-round picks when you consider the money they gave Mickey. He's basically a late first-round pick. 4 guys who the Celtics obviously value are getting less playing time combined than the Celtics' 9th man veteran who has no future. Does that worry you guys at all? Eric, I'll start with you this time. Is there anything we should be worried about, as this is still a team that should be looking to develop young talent?
No, because I think with the Isaiah Thomas trade, they kind of shifted away from we're going to only focus on development and we're going to try to win. That's why they went out and got David Lee. I mean, he's obviously an upgrade over Gerald Wallace, but they're giving him minutes. And, I mean, R.J. Hunter is getting 10 minutes. He's averaging 10 minutes a game. Rozier is averaging 7 minutes a game.
That's when he plays, though. There's a lot of games he doesn't even play.
Right. But he'll get minutes, and these guys these aren't like top 10 picks that aren't getting playing time because of other guys. These are guys who were drafted low, who are going to need time to develop. We're going to need to these aren't guys that you're going to help to win now. And it's also because of how Brad Stevens' system works is you get minutes when you earn them. Like Rozier wasn't getting any minutes. And now he's getting minutes because he's playing harder. And so I don't want to just say, oh, well, Rozier should be playing twice as much as he is just because we need to develop him. If Stevens doesn't think he's earned it, then he hasn't earned it. I mean, I look down at Miami, and I see Justice Winslow, the guy that apparently we were going to sell the farm for, and he's a rookie, and they're playing him on a contender in crunch time in the fourth quarter. The dude gets tons of minutes. They're depending on him as a rookie, and that's because he's shown up and he's doing it. The other guys, I mean, R.J. Hunter's hit a couple threes. I haven't been that impressed with what I've seen on the court, so I think it's more about them being able to earn those minutes and just saying, well, they should get them.
We've seen Jordan Mickey 5 minutes. How much is he going to impress you in those 5 minutes? But Mark,
second round pick, Jordan Mickey.
Right.
Highest paid second-round pick of all time.
Right, that's true. No, I have to say I'm not really concerned. I look at it this way, like, did you ever think of a guy and you're like, oh, that guy could have been a star, but he never made it big because he didn't get to play enough as a rookie? And I'm counting James Young as a rookie, too. He's the youngest guy on the team. So they'll have plenty of time to develop. We got him under team control for a while. And, yeah, winning games right now is definitely a better way to go. The other thing, I don't know if this is really relevant or not, but it comes to mind is, like, Lee's contract is up. They're going to try to probably move him at the end of the year if they can. If the better he is, the more minutes he plays, maybe they get some value for him as opposed to a dead contract. Might even be worth thinking about that with Amir Johnson, too. I don't know. The rookies, they'll get their chance. And like you said, we're 18 games in. Who knows? Even maybe another 20 games, maybe by midseason they are playing more and it's a non-issue.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with Mark. I think that I'm not too concerned. I think that the most important thing is that they develop, and it doesn't necessarily need to be pro minutes. I think that, if they're working hard in practice, they're earning their minutes, they're trying to earn their minutes. I think that's really important for the culture as a whole. And, the most important thing for this team is to have another winning season. I don't want the free agency to roll around and because we gave another we're down at 500 because we gave a lot of minutes to the kids. I mean, I think we're better off putting the best team we possibly can together and try and go get a round or two in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I'm on an island here, and that's fine. I can be I'm a big enough man to be on an island. Now here's my thing.
Mike. Do you think this team would be 10-8 if we doubled Rozier's Hunter's minutes and gave Mickey 10 minutes a game? Do you think we'd be 10-8 right now?
here's what my whole thing is this. I'm not saying it's definitely the right move. My worry is, and this could be something that 20 games from now looks like a complete non-factor, is that we had all these first-round picks, all these valuable assets. At their highest value is before they're drafted. After that, they start to depreciate as they don't show things on the court. James Young was the 19th overall pick. 1 year and 18 games in, he has shown this much. He's never really gotten a legitimate chance, and I trust Brad Stevens that he hasn't deserved it over the current players. But that asset is getting closer and closer to depreciating. Now this year, we stretched on Terry Rozier. We drafted R.J. Hunter, who has played a little bit. He's the one guy who's kind of pseudo in the rotation. And we grabbed Mickey again, and we give him basically first-round money. A little bit. Mickey got slightly more than R.J. Hunter, 3 picks later. Yep. So that's why I consider him a late first-round pick. I'm not saying that they definitely should be playing. I'm just saying that as we start to hopefully round into a championship team in the next 2-3 years, this season could be a time where those guys develop, and I'm not sure they're going to get that chance. And to answer your question, Mark, superstars, I'm not sure, but there are plenty of guys who didn't get a chance one place and then did somewhere else. I'm looking at Hassan Whiteside right now as somebody who didn't get a chance and then did. And I'm not saying any of these guys are an all-star caliber player, but as the season goes on, if these guys get no developmental time the rest of the year, I think there's a shot the Celtics end up, thinking they should have done it a little bit differently a few years down the line. But Eric, yeah, you're right. I don't think they necessarily know. They might be 8-10, and they should go for wins right now. I get it. But David Lee getting more minutes than those 4 guys combined, it's a question for me.
I think you make a good point about the future draft picks coming up and how, the draft picks have their most value before a player's even picked,
right?
And unless they become a superstar right away. You're right. Like James Young has 0 trade value right now, but he did before. And so maybe you got to look at it as they keep if they want to trade any of their current rookies, then you're right. You got to play them because they're going to have no value soon. But if you look at it as they're already on the team, they're going to keep them. They're going to wait and maybe use them. Maybe they never develop into anything. But if you focus on maybe using those future picks as trades, you got to do one or the other, obviously, because you're not going to have room for all these guys. But yeah, you definitely make a good point about how these guys can be affected by the picks coming up.
Well, yeah, this is going to be a problem for Ainge because how many rookies, what's the most rookies we're going to bring in the next draft and what's the least? We might bring in 5, we might bring in 9. How many rookies are we going to bring in the next time? Where are these guys going to play?
They have to make a trade. They have to make a trade. They have, and I know depth is good. They have too many guys who are recent first-round picks or valuable NBA players and too many picks. There is a time where those assets, you lose those assets if you don't package them and move them. I'm patient. I love how the rebuild is going, but there needs to be a group of assets traded for a better asset deal sometime before the next draft. It has to happen, or else you're just going to start losing some of these assets. Am I crazy about that? I don't think I am.
No, I wouldn't say so.
No, you're right. They have too many picks. I'm all excited. They might have 4 first-round picks next year. You can't play 4 first-round picks.
So next year you're going to have those 4 guys and the other 3 guys and all sitting on the bench. It's I get what they're doing, but I do think there is a time for action that is coming for Danny Ainge. The step of the rebuild where you accumulate the assets, he hit out of the park. And I think in terms of talent, every year of this rebuild, now 3 years, the talent has gotten better and better and better. And I don't know what else you could really ask for, but I would hate to see a lot of the assets they've had go to waste and become not as valuable. And I do think that he's going to need to figure it out in the next, when's the draft? 8 months from now. That's all. But it doesn't mean the rebuild's a failure or anything. I just think they need to pull off something pretty major.
Well, the other thing, too, is for Ainge, just because we have, potentially 4 first-round picks and 6 seconds, I think, is a Celtics asset just diminished just because we have so many? When it comes to trading, our team's going to expect, you have so many. Try and really drive a hard bargain with Ainge, and I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to affect the trade market for the Celtics.
It's definitely going to hurt his leverage because teams are going to know you've got to make a trade. Like I just looked it up. They've got, assuming that Minnesota falls off and that becomes 2 second-round picks, they got 3 firsts and 5 seconds. Like, what? You're going to bring in 8 rookies? Like, even if you snatch 3 of them, you're going to bring in 5 rookies. Like, what? And teams are going to look at that and say, "What? Why would I give you anything of real value when I know that you have no choice? Like, I know you're not going to play 9, 10 guys on their second or third year. So it's going to be hard, and he's got to do it now instead of waiting. Because if he waits for draft night, he's going to be hurting. I mean, he's going to be selling draft picks for cash."
Yeah, and I would also say, one of these, I've been telling Ainge to do this for 10 years, but can he draft a European and store them and hope they turn into something? Like, we got 152 for a second-round picks. You can store those guys for 3, 4, 5 years overseas. Like, maybe eventually you go that route, and that I think could be interesting because then maybe when this team hopefully is a championship contender in 2019, they have some talent over in Europe to tap into. But I do think that's going to be pretty interesting. I think there are a few questions that I got, at least, so we'll get into some Twitter questions. But before that, this is a fun exercise that we kind of talked about, which is there have been expansion drafts in the past in the NBA where you can protect a certain number of players. What if there were an expansion draft tomorrow? Let's say the NBA added 4 teams, which is not going to happen, but let's say it was. And you could protect 5 current Celtics players, and you take everything into consideration, obviously, their skill level, their age, their contract. Which 5 would you pick? So, this is going to take probably a couple minutes each to answer, but let's start with you, Mark. Which 5 Celtics players on the roster do you protect?
All right, so I was on the fence on this coming in, and I think the conversation we just had has made me reevaluate the situation. So I was going to say, you got to keep Isaiah at number 1. He's the best player. His contract is insanely good. Smart, also no-brainer. So they're in. I was going to say Sullinger and Bradley because they're playing really well, and they're on decent contracts, and they're the core of like a reasonably good team. And then I was going to say Crowder, and that was going to be my 5. And I thought I was confident in that. But then I'm thinking, wait, what about the rookies? Like, who knows what R.J. Hunter could be? Who knows what James Young could be? Jordan Mickey, most of all Terry Rozier probably. And now I'm thinking that maybe I have to let those last 3 guys go and substitute in the rookies just for, like you said, like those guys are solid players, but like is Avery Bradley going to be a shooting guard on a championship team? Maybe, but he might not be. There's probably another guy you can get who can do that. Same thing with Crowder. He's awesome on this team. Does he even play big minutes on a really good team? Maybe, but he's not like a core player of a very good team. And considering what we just said about how they're going to have more draft picks coming and they have too many players, I think I would reevaluate completely. So I would go with Smart and Thomas 1 and 2, and then probably this year's 3 draft picks, actually. Hunter, Rozier, and Mickey. That might sound crazy. I know. I just totally changed my stance. But now I'm thinking like they're going to have to do a whole nother rebuild because this current one can only go so far with all these players. So you might as well go that way.
Very interesting. What do you think, Eric? I saw you kind of look up. You're not agreeing with Mark.
Well, for an expansion draft, you're going to keep the 5 guys. Like, those guys are untouchable, and then the expansion team picks off of those guys, right? So that they pick the rest. So I highly doubt that an expansion team is going to all of a sudden grab a Rozier or grab a Hunter, grab a rookie, and then like, this is the guy we're going to draft. I don't think that's what's going to happen at all. I think you're safe because they really haven't shown anything. If they were like, Justice Winslow could absolutely be a guy who's going to be snagged in an expansion draft because he's a rookie and he's doing really great things. But guys like Rozier and Hunter, they haven't really shown a lot. Teams aren't going to be trying to snatch those guys up, so they'll probably still be on the roster. I'm going to go with what Mark had for his original 5. I'm going to go with Thomas. I'm going to go with Smart. I'm going to go with Crowder. I'm going to go with Bradley, and I'm going to go with Sullinger. I think you keep those 5. Those are essentially your 5 best players. Olenek, he's on the fence. But I don't know who I would leave off. I don't know who I would kick off the boat to keep Olenek. Like, he might be a guy who actually does get snatched up by a team looking to stretch the floor. But I don't. Is it worth giving up Bradley? Is it worth giving up Sullinger, given what he's doing now? The dude's averaging almost a double-double. So he's the only real question mark I had, but I think Mark's original 5 is a good 5.
What do you think, Paul? Who are your 5?
I'm going with Thomas, Smart, Bradley, Crowder, and then I'm going to go with Hunter. I think RJ is someone who fits where this team is going. I don't know if he's the guy, but the way he gets a shot off so quick, he's taken to the defense probably better than anyone would have hoped for, and I think he's a guy who I would want to try and maybe build around. And Sullinger, I would have kept if he wasn't going to be going into free agency after this. I don't know what that contract's going to look to get Sullinger after this year when the cap jumps up, even in restricted free agency. So that's why I let him go, so to speak.
You actually 100% have the same answer as me for like mostly the same reasons. I have Hunter in there. I will say, for me, Smart and Thomas were easy. I've been an Avery Bradley. I don't want to say doubter, but just is this guy overpaid? But seeing what he's doing right now, yeah, the guy we've seen this year can be the starting 2 guard on a championship team. Like, that's how good he's been. Because he's always been great defensively. Now you could say it was 43% unsustainable. Well, he was like 36 to 37, so it's a big jump, but it's not like he was a bad three-point shooter who's suddenly become really good. He was like kind of good, and now he's really good. So if this is the real Avery Bradley, he has to be in there. The guy turned 25 like a month ago. So he's young. You have him for 3 more years at reasonable money. So it came down to 3 guys for me with 2 spots: Jay Crowder, Jared Sullinger, and RJ Hunter. And I ended up Hunter and Crowder because Sullinger scares the crap out of me once he gets paid. He came in the best shape of his life, which still isn't very good shape this year. And I know so far the results are great, but we're also talking about a guy who's had multiple back surgeries and a foot surgery. So or a stress fracture in his foot. Those normally don't get better as you go from being like 23 to 27. So I'm afraid to give him $8 to $10 to $12 million a year, considering where the cap's going. So I went Crowder because I think he gives you something defensively, and you have him locked down for 5 years at a reasonable amount of money. And Hunter, who I do think is going to be a starting caliber player who you have dirt cheap for 4 years, and then you have him, under control because you can match anything in restricted 4 years from there. But Mark, I will say, as much as I can't choose like Rozier over Bradley, yeah, then you're just like, it's kind of tough because you're giving away, not giving away, but leaving all these guys that you just selected, and it's just kind of disappointing, I guess, in a little bit that none of the 3 guys you selected in the top 32, or I guess for Paul and I, one of them is in the top 5. Like, none of those guys are as valuable as the guy you got in the Rondo trade. It's just
throwing.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just that.
Crowder's contract is a big part of that too, because he's hardly making any money, and he could. If you have a ton of studs, he could be your starting small forward, but he could also be your 6th, 7th guy off the bench and do amazing things with hustle plays, hitting threes, great defense. So, and he's getting paid peanuts, and with the cap jump, he's almost as valuable as Isaiah, even though Isaiah does more on the court. He's the guy that you're going to want to keep just because of his contract, because he can give you 30 minutes a game and be productive, and he's making a fraction of what everyone else is going to make.
No, you're absolutely right. Anyone else got anything to add on this subject or anything more Celtics related before we get into some NBA stuff in general? I did see one question on Twitter. People asked about the Nets pick, but we already talked about that, I think. Someone asked, Elon Seaman Tove, I think that's how you say his name. The Celtics, can they have a top-tier D without a rim protector here to stay? Do we still look at rim protection as something they need? They have the 4th or 5th best D rating right now with Amir Johnson protecting the rim. How important is it that they get the true center, so to speak, in the next, as we move forward over the next year or so? What do you think, Mark?
It's funny. There was another question we got earlier in the day on Twitter from CJ Allen. are we ever going to get a solid center? So, yeah, all right, let's talk about that. Clearly that's what people want to know. I think rim protection is like the most overused buzzword in the entire NBA. Like, how many teams really have good rim protectors? There's DeAndre Jordan, there's Anthony Davis, I guess maybe.
Whiteside.
Yeah, that's true. Whiteside, Rudy Gobert. I don't know, like 5, 6, 7. I don't even think, like, the NBA is phasing out centers. It's like a dying brand of basketball. Just look at the game against the Heat the other night. The reason the Celtics won that game was because Whiteside stood down low and didn't cover anybody out deep. And they made a big point of that. That's why Amir Johnson had his best game of the season. Yeah, it's a good thing to have, but, I mean, what did the Warriors do last year? You know, like, yeah, they have some centers, but it's just basketball is changing, and that's becoming less and less of an important thing. And there's centers out there if you need them. Like our best center, our starting center last year, Tyler Zeller, he doesn't even play anymore. He's out completely. I don't think you need a center.
Eric, what do you think?
I agree with Mark that you don't need a center, but I would disagree that you don't need rim protection. I think you can get rim. Like you look at the Warriors, Draymond Green blocks a hell of a lot of shots. He is their rim protector, even though he's not their center. You can get the league is going to more small ball, so you would need smaller guys. But you can get guys. You don't need a Whiteside or DeAndre Jordan to get in there and block shots. Amir Johnson isn't really even a center. He's more of a power forward, but we play him as a center. And you can see the difference. When he's in the game,
Yeah.
Teams attack us a lot differently than when they do when he's not. And we haven't seen that in a couple of years because we even haven't had shot blockers. And now we have one again, and you can see the teams are like, oh, maybe I shouldn't just drive at these guys every 2 seconds. And so I do think it still has an importance. I don't think you need the 7'3" dude in there to make sure that nobody gets inside, but you can have a 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guy in there who can block shots and keep the guys honest.
Yeah. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need a center, especially when we have that lineup where we have Smart, Bradley, and Crowder out there together. I mean, guys can't even do anything when those guys are out there. The defense is really, it's performing at a very high level. And I think you can see the value of rim protection when you compare what happens when Amir Johnson's out there to what happens when David Lee's out there. It's a very noticeable difference in the paint. So obviously you want more guys that can do what Amir can do, but I don't think it needs to come in the form of, drafting a 7'1" guy that you're hoping to develop, like may have been the case 10 years ago.
Yeah, you need versatile defenders, right? You need guys like Smart who can guard multiple positions, in the backcourt, and you need guys like Amir Johnson who can guard multiple positions in the front court. And the Celtics have that. I think Amir Johnson could absolutely be, your best rim protector on a really, really good team. So they need good defenders in all these positions, but they don't need Hassan Whiteside getting 3.5 blocks a game. If you look at some of the great rim protectors of the last 5 to 10 years, they're not always on very good teams. Remember Larry Sanders, he's the best rim protector. Well, he's on some bad Bucks teams. And Rudy Gobert, I think is, the Jazz are still young, so you don't want to judge them, but it's not like they inserted Rudy Gobert and became a 60-win team. He's a great thing to have. If they could just, if they were like, the Jazz were like, hey, do you want Rudy Gobert? I'd be like, yeah, I would love to have this guy. I'd give up something really nice for him. But you don't need it if you have enough of the other things. And the Celtics are loaded with elite defenders. Really, really loaded with elite defenders. So I think they're in a good position with that. This actually kind of brought my mind into one other Celtics-related topic. Are you worried about Marcus Smart being injury-prone? I'm a little worried. He's now missed about 20 to 25% of the games of his NBA career. He plays insanely hard, which we all love. But what's he going to have to do to pull himself back and be on the court? Because as they say, the best ability is availability, and he's not always available. Let's start with Eric, who is Smart. We all like Smart a lot. I love Smart. It's Eric's Binky. Eric, is there a little cause for concern?
I'm struggling with this one because I don't think that he's injury prone in the sense that Derrick Rose is injury prone. It's not like, right. Oh, there's his knee again. It's the back issue. It's all these little nagging.
He has nothing so far that's like, oh wow, Smart. That's going to be with him forever. I do agree.
He's like the Ellsbury of the Celtics. Like it's always something like, oh, now he's hurt and now he's going to be out for some games. I mean, this last injury, he had like a walking boot on, so that does seem like a bigger deal. But there's a part of me that wonders if the Celtics training staff babies the guys a little bit too much. That maybe they would play more games if the training staff gave them a little bit more leeway. I don't know exactly what the whole, like I'm not in there for those conversations, but it does seem like they kind of sit guys out longer than they should have to and pull guys and have them sit for injuries where other guys would play through it. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but that could be because Smart you think is like a bulldog. This dude is built like a brick house, and it's like he gets these little nagging things like, oh, like I can't, my foot hurts, or now I have something with my elbow, or something. It's just I don't know if that's necessarily him saying I'm hurt and I can't play, or if it's the training staff saying this is our second-year player, our potential maybe face of the franchise. We should probably sit this guy for a couple weeks.
Paul, what do you think?
I mean, I think you have to be a little bit concerned, but it's not the knee, it's not the back. He's still young, and hopefully, Eric's right where they're bringing him along slowly. They're being extra cautious. Marcus Smart not playing, I might give some extra reps to the guys who weren't playing before a little bit, and I don't know. I'm still optimistic, but anxious to have the guy back for sure.
Mark?
I want to read this tweet from Rich Levine from 9 days ago. He said, Marcus Smart isn't injury prone. He's a super intense kid who needs to remember that he's human and play with more respect for his body. And I definitely see that analysis, but it's a little scary because that's what makes him good. So if he plays in a way where he's not throwing himself all over the place with reckless abandon, like, is he still going to be good? Is he still going to be a great defender? Like, there's a lot of guys who are really good defenders I'm starting to notice right when they first enter the league because they're rookies and they're crazy and they just work their asses off. And that is, like, a huge part of defense. And with Smart's skill set, I mean, obviously he can develop. But I kind of also equate it. There's two other guys that come to mind when I think of this, Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose. And Wade and Rose were both guys who would take the ball to the hoop and just go up into the air and not care who smashed into them. They were always falling down all over the place. Wade has kind of been full of nagging injuries his whole career. Rose, it's basically been a disaster. So where does Smart fall on the Dwayne Wade to Derrick Rose scale with these nagging injuries? I think he's probably closer to Wade, and that would be obviously an ideal situation. But it's definitely something we got to worry about right now.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have the alarms going off. It's not a red alert, but I'm concerned. I hope someone has. It's really hard, right? You have a conversation with the kid, and you're like, "Don't play as hard." Well, he's got to play really hard to be effective because offensively, he's hopefully going to be at least an average offensive player. He's not there yet, but I don't think we give up on that. I think he can develop into that. But a lot of his value is that he's one of the best defensive guards in basketball already. And he gets that by being full tilt all the time, going crazy, diving after loose balls, running through screens. And there's some level of concern there for me. I'd say like a 4 out of 10. If and when, like if he comes, knock on wood, there's some kind of serious injury, then I start to get really worried. I'm hoping, though, he can come back and kind of do what he did last year, which is once he got over a few things. I think he was around like the last 40 games of last year. And you hope he can do the same thing this year. Okay, he's already been banged up twice, but now he comes back and has a good run. Because his offensive development does depend on him being on the court, him getting reps, him taking the ball to the hoop, which has been probably the one disappointing thing I've had with him is that he hasn't really been able to take the ball to the hoop and finish the way I expected him to coming out of Oklahoma State. So worry there.
Yeah, well, as much as I love Smart, I am a little concerned that he said – before the season started, like everyone was saying, well, why don't you go to the hoop more? Why aren't you driving? Why aren't you? And he said, well, it's because I wasn't 100%. I had a bum ankle. Like is that always going to be the case? Is it going to be he's not going to go to the rim the rest of this year because he has an ankle thing or because he has some other thing? Like I don't want him to make excuses for it. Like if you're ready to go, then go. If you're going to drive, then drive. Is he ever going to get to the point where he's now 100% and he's always going to do all the things he wants to do, or is this just going to be, well, I didn't do it last season either because, I had a bum ankle?
Good point, Eric. When are we going to see the 100% Marcus Smart? Because we haven't really seen it, I guess, in his first season and a quarter. Hopefully we do see it, because I think offensively he can still be a good player. And if he's a good offensive player with his defense, that's when he becomes an all-star. And that's what the Celtics need, is an all-star, multiple all-stars. And if they have one on the roster, beautiful. I want to get to some NBA topics. We briefly talked about Kobe, so that's one. Have you guys ever seen a player that like this bad? Ever? Like, is he the worst player of all time right now?
Austin Rivers is still in the league, so I'd say no.
Austin Rivers doesn't shoot 100. He doesn't go 7 for 26.
Now he doesn't. There was a time when, because Doc Rivers is like, you're not going to be doing that anymore. Like Austin Rivers, I don't even know how he got into the NBA. Some of the stuff he would pull. At least with Kobe, we know that he has the ability. It just kind of went away. We don't know if Austin Rivers ever really had the ability.
Oh, Kobe had the ability, but it is like gone. Like Chris Webber said the most insane thing last night. Kobe started 3 for 4. And Chris Webber on NBA TV was like, this is just proof that the legs aren't there, but any given night, for like if they played one NBA game a week, Kobe would be the best player in the game still. And then Kobe missed 5,000 shots in a row. Like he started 3 for 4, and then he went 4 for 22. He missed 13 threes. Like, this guy is shooting the second most threes in basketball behind Steph Curry, and they never go in. Like 20%. He's the worst. This is the worst I've ever seen a player impact their team. I swear, because of the amount of minutes, the amount of shots. None of them go in. He can't play defense. He still thinks last night. He hears crazy comment. He's like, when I started 3 before, I could see it on Philly's eyes. They were like, "Is another 81-point game coming?" It's like, Kobe, no one thought that, man. No one thought that. I was watching on TV. I'm like, oh man, Kobe's shooting from half court. Like he's gonna end up shooting them out of this game, because you're not gonna hit 3 out of 4 every threes that you're shooting from 30 feet, like heat checks. Mark, Paul, you guys have any thoughts? Is Kobe the worst player of all time?
I'm trying to think of oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul. You go first. I'll go last.
He's definitely the worst player with the biggest green light. Like, no one's ever had the green light where you can go to the depths that Kobe's going. It's unbelievable to watch. It's like it's a circus act. It's crazy. Mark, you go ahead.
I'm trying to think of a comparison. Like with Wizards Jordan, was he? I don't think he was more a 6-man. Like maybe he didn't.
No, Wizards.
Wizards
Jordan was a good player.
Right.
He was like
he adapted.
Points a game on like 43% shooting. Like he wasn't MJ, but he was still like literally a fringe all-star.
Maybe I bet there was like, I don't know, maybe like old Kareem. I bet there was like an aging big man somewhere along the way. I don't know. You're making a good point. But more, I want to say, Kobe making that retirement announcement was so perfectly timed and brilliant for him.
Yeah,
I really give him credit for that. Because as soon as he realized, like, oh man, I do not have it anymore. It's like, all right, what can I do? I can just turn this season into a joke. It doesn't matter if I'm good. I can just laugh about everything, go out there and play, and it's exactly what my team wants anyway. It was the perfect timing and perfect situation. So I'll give him credit for that at least.
All right, there's one more Kobe thing because I looked it up. Kobe's offensive rating this year is 84. League average is 102. So Kobe is 84. That's one of the worst in the league. His defensive rating is 111. Again, league average is 102. So Kobe, if a team full of Kobes per 100 possessions, which is slightly more than a full game, a team full of Kobes would lose an average game 111 to 84. I don't know, you could say, well, the stats might not be perfect. I think they paint a good enough picture. This guy is, I'm going to look it up after the show, how many players have played this many minutes with that bad a defensive rating and that bad an offensive rating. He is something else. It's amazing to watch. I've never seen a player shoot this much and they never go in. It's incredible.
You know what I want to add to that? Beginning of last season, before he got hurt, I remember he was on pace to shatter the record for missed shots in a season. Whatever that is, I haven't looked it up lately. He may well do it this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's shooting 17.6 times a game at 30% even. That's incredible. No, like I said, there's only been 7 guys who have ever done that. 6 played in the NBA's inaugural season when, like, I think they used like a metal ball. And then 1 played 3 years later. and it was the guy Joe Folks, and they said he was a prison guard in the offseason. So like that's what Kobe is doing right now. Is he's like compared to the guys who had second jobs in the offseason. So it's not good. Someone asleep somewhere? Do you guys hear that? Sounds like.
My dog is snoring.
Oh, I was like, sounds like someone snoring. All right. Well, we're putting your dog to sleep. I do want to ask this question: can anybody outside of God himself stop a Golden State versus Cleveland rematch? I'll go first. No. No one can stop it. LeBron owns the Eastern Conference. Again, injuries. Steph Curry goes down. LeBron goes down. Yes, anything can happen with injuries. Reasonably healthy. LeBron is going to win the East. The East is better in terms of depth than it's been in any time in about 10 years. There is no number 2 team. There is no team that's going to beat LeBron. LeBron last year with no Kevin Love and a banged-up Kyrie, because Kyrie, was injured before he broke his knee. He missed some time in the Chicago series. No one came close. No one even pushed him past 6 games. It was sweep, 6 games, sweep. The guy is going to win the East the next few years at least. I'm not going to say 5, but the next, like this year and next year, the Cavs are going to the finals unless he gets hurt. It's 100%. And then out west, Golden State's one of the best teams of all time. They really are. They've mastered the new age NBA. If someone wants to say San Antonio's got a shot, I'll give you that. Chance maybe if you want to push for that. I don't think they do. I think Golden State's going to run anybody out of the building. I think they're going to win 72 games. So I say outside of severe injuries, it's not going to happen. Paul, I'll start with we'll go to you next. What do you think?
I would say the Spurs are the only contender in the West. I mean, I just can't count those guys out. They've proved themselves so many times that I feel like they're taking it easy. Maybe with the Warriors getting off to such a great, historic start, the spotlight's way off the Spurs, and that's exactly how they like it. So they're the only team I see. Cavs are definitely going to win the East. So that's how I see it.
Mark?
I might argue we're not factoring in injuries, obviously. An injury, Curry or LeBron gets hurt, it's a whole new thing. But I agree with the Cavs. It's only LeBron. It doesn't matter who else gets hurt.
No.
We forget they don't even have Kyrie yet, and they're easily the best team in the East.
He has people make fun of his finals record, and that's fair. That's like one of the things you can say about LeBron. We've never seen someone just like curb stomp a conference like this guy.
Right.
And I know it's the weaker conference, but it's like, oh yeah, like, who's fighting for second in the East for the last 10 years? Because LeBron just since the Celtics, the 08 to 10 Celtics, nobody can touch this guy.
Yeah. But I will say this, if everyone's healthy, I would almost argue that the Warriors are bigger favorites in the West than the Cavs are in the East. But yeah, like you said, they've perfected the brand of basketball. No one can do anything against them. They're impossible to defend. They haven't lost a game yet. They're on pace to go 82-0, almost a quarter of the way through the season. Obviously, they're not, but like any one game, if they're focused, like maybe they lose a game or two to the Spurs, they're not going to stop shooting well for 4 out of 7 games.
Nope.
Yeah, and I think they would also just destroy Cleveland in the finals once again. Yeah, they're unbeatable right now unless there's some major change happens that no one's figured out.
Full strength Cleveland, I think, brings them to 6. That's like the best case scenario. You get Kyrie back, he's playing well. LeBron gets his whole game together, and LeBron's still going to be 2-5 in the finals. So people can get their jokes ready right now. LeBron's going to run through the East, and he's going to lose the finals to the Warriors. Eric, what do you think?
I mean, in the East, I could see. The Pacers right now are the number 2 seed, and I don't think the Pacers could knock off Cleveland, but I could see them making it a series because Paul George is going off right now.
He's incredible.
He looks even better than before he got hurt. He's just doing everything on both sides of the court. A healthy Miami could cause Cleveland some problems because they got tons of talent, 1 through 5 on that starting roster. And how poetic would that be? Bosh and Wade knock the Cavs out of the Eastern Conference Finals. But yeah, I think Cleveland pretty much has that. I mean, they could have some problems, but I don't think it's anything major. For the West, don't count out San Antonio ever. Do not. Every time people think, whatever, they don't even worry about some other team. A few years ago, there was the Dallas Mavericks had the number one seed in the West, and then they got knocked out by the 8th seed. We never know what's going to happen. San Antonio is just as good as they were last year, and then they added LaMarcus Aldridge, who seems to be meshing perfectly with Popovich's system. Pop's going to rest his guys. They're all going to be fresh. He's shown for years he knows how to do that. You got Tim Duncan You got Parker, you got Aldridge, you got Kawhi, who's looked superhuman. The dude is just amazing. That team could absolutely knock off the Spurs. In Oklahoma City, Durant and Westbrook is just too good of a combination. That 1-2 punch. I mean, they're a little rocky right now, but Durant and Westbrook is no team has a 1-2 like even the Cavs. Like LeBron and Love, that's not Durant and Westbrook. LeBron and Kyrie, that's not Durant and Westbrook. And they have Ibaka, and they have Enes Kanter, who's going nuts off the bench. I would not count either the Spurs or the Thunder out when it comes to knocking off Golden State. They're really good right now, but the playoffs are a whole different animal.
They're a different animal that Golden State ran right through last year, though. I mean, really, like the 16 and 5. They won 67 games last year. They're going to win 70 games this year. They went 16 and 5 on their way to a title. This is one of the greatest teams of all time. Like 2-year run. I know, like you're not going to put them up there with the Bulls or with the Celtics because like 5 years, 10 years, you can't compare them. But 2-year wise, there's a shot we look back at this 2-year run, like up there with the best 2-year run of the Lakers in the early 2000s, or the 96 and 97 Bulls, who are the best 2-year run ever because they went 69 and then 72 wins, which is just ridiculous. This team, I think, is just the Spurs are so good. The Spurs don't do one. They're not better than Golden State on either side of the ball. This team is so good defensively. They're so deep. They never stop coming. They're the best shooting team. They cut. They pass. They're team first. All the things that get into the head of winning teams have not gotten into this team's head. I mean, yeah, you're right. I'm fully counting out the Spurs is dumb. I give them a puncher's chance. But, oh, man, I don't know. This team is something special. They're the best team I've ever watched. They really are. They're the best team I've ever watched.
I agree with all of Eric's points, but I still think they have no chance. Forget they're being coached by Luke Walton now.
I know.
They don't even have their coach. The Warriors are a whole other thing that's like unlike anything we've ever seen in the NBA.
They're a chainsaw. Anyone else have anything else they want to talk about before we call this an episode?
Oh no? Yeah, one quick thing on Twitter, right? So for the title of this Celtics Life Live, we called it "What Would It Take for You to Trade the Nets Pick?" And so when the post went out, we got a lot of responses just to that one question. Only 2 answers: Durant or Boogie.
Durant.
Yes, I will trade the pick for Durant. Let me.
Can we get LeBron while we're at it? And let's swing for Anthony Davis too. Let's do that too.
I'll go with that. Yeah, Anthony Davis. There's quite a few players I'd trade, but the only one who might be on the market. Okay, just real quick. Would you trade the pick if Kevin Love and LeBron are enemies, and you can trade a handful of role players in the Nets pick for Kevin Love? Would anyone do that?
No.
Maybe. Because it's all the reasons I don't like DeMarcus. It's because he has, Kevin Love doesn't have those kind of issues. He's not a douchebag off the court. He's not a guy who's going to cuss out the coach. I mean, he puts up essentially the same numbers. He's not as good defensively, although the difference isn't quite as big as others would point out. And he does a lot of the same things on offense, and he's a legit three-point shooter. He becomes the face of the franchise, and I don't know. With all the defenders we have, we could absolutely make up for his defensive shortcomings. If the Nets keep winning games, so I keep moving up where I would say no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Now, I'll take Kevin Love for that pick.
Yeah, I probably would because of the unknown. If it was definitely Ben Simmons, I wouldn't do it for sure. 10 to 20% chance at Ben Simmons with a 80 to 90% chance at a player. I don't think there'll be another guy on the same level as him. I'd probably do it. Not that Kevin Love's going to become available, but if you were able to really boost Cleveland's depth, if it wasn't really working out, and you're able to give him such a good pick, and it's more conversation than anything. But I would definitely consider it. You kind of got to. All right, well, I think we'll call that episode 21, I think it was, of Celtics Life Live. We've got to do these more often. It's only the first one of the year. So let's do it again. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Paul. It was fun, and we will see you guys the next time.